It's not a theoretical problem. These children are not going to have good lives. For the first generation, we may have a generation of kids who live less well than their parents did.
Mm.
And education is the only way out of that.
Mm.
For us, it's a mission. Can we do whatever we can to improve the processes around the teaching process so that those teachers can do their jobs that they want to do?
Welcome to the Just-in-Time Cafe, GoLean6Sigma.com's official podcast, where we help you build your problem-solving muscles. We share best practices from over 20 years of success, helping organizations from the Fortune 500 to small and medium-sized business to government achieve their goals using Lean Six Sigma.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Hey, Tracy.
How are you today?
I'm great, except I'm incredibly hot.
I know, we really need iced coffees today at the cafe.
I would
go get
also
something.
Yeah, get the iced coffee. I would also like to be in the private dining room where there is air conditioning.
Yes, thank the Lord for that.
Okay, I'm grabbing a menu. I will meet you.
Okay. Okay, so on the menu, let's hear about our appetizer, Elizabeth.
Okay, on the menu, we've got an appetizer. We've got an app that helps you find out what your employees really think. Intriguing.
Ooh.
Yeah. In the news on our bulletin board, we've got how sharing a backhoe helped send Ventura County, California, on their way to saving $7 million, and then how the golden dump truck is the Stanley Cup for a Cedar Rapids, Iowa 5S team. Then we're going to get into our tools of the trade. We're going to discuss a groundbreaking book that shows how the carrot and the stick fail as ways to motivate us. And what do you do about it? And then today's question, we're going to explore the difference between ISO 9001 and Lean Six Sigma. And today's special is an interview with the CEO and an education consultant from APQC. And they're going to tell us how they've managed to apply Lean Six Sigma to public education.
That's an exciting lineup. Can't wait to hear about it. Okay, so Elizabeth, why don't you tell us a little bit about the appetizer, or how do we figure out what employees really think?
This is a great one. This is today's appetizer, and it is called Suggestion Ox. Yeah, it's a way to create your own digital suggestion boxes. It's a way to get employee input. What's great about this is that it is 100% anonymous. There's no way to trace who has given the information. And it's also free. I think there's some paid versions, but we always love free. You get automatic updates. It'll tell you if someone has put a suggestion into your suggestion box. And you can output it to Excel if you want to do more analysis on the different themes that came up in the suggestions. And I think in our world, I think it's a great way to create or extend a project pipeline. We always say you want projects from top down, but you also want them from bottom up. And this is a way to get employees to tell you what bugs them, because they're on the front line, they know what's wrong, and they can give you great project ideas. So this is a great way, especially when people are afraid to showcase problems. I know we've run into that where people don't want to be the one to say, hey, we don't do this as well as we could, right? There's a little stigma to that, which there shouldn't be, but this is a way to get past that stigma.
Yeah. You know what I really like about this too is it probably could be used when you're piloting something to check in on a process, right? So a lot of times we when we're in the improve phase and we pilot a new solution, we're usually pretty cognizant of the feedback early on to make sure we get it right, to see an improvement. But later, there might be a couple of glitches we missed. So this sounds like it'd be a great way to get feedback too on the process change and the people that are doing the process change. If it's broader and you have to do like a multi-phase implementation and involve a lot more other employees, this might be a great place to put that in there too.
I think that's I didn't even thought about that one, but I love that because it's tough to get feedback in general. People don't want to give you bad news, and you really want to hone these things and get the best improvement possible. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
So Suggestion Ox, it's free. There'll be a link so you can look on their website to find it. So next up, Tracy, why don't you tell us what's on the bulletin board?
Okay, so something that we discovered on the roundup that we do at GoLean6Sigma.com is we, gather all the news about any Lean Six Sigma news. And one that came up was about Ventura County Public Works Agency and how they've been able to implement Lean Six Sigma. And those savings have generated, or those efforts have generated $2 million in cost avoidance for this fiscal year and $7 million in cost avoidance over the past 6 years. And they attribute all of that to applying the techniques of Lean and Six Sigma. And some of the improvement opportunities they've had include things like, as you had mentioned, an expensive backhoe they decided to share with another agency so that they didn't have to buy two. Things like that. It's not hard. It's simple stuff, but it can really make an impact on the bottom line. They have conducted about 175 events since they've started the Lean Six Sigma initiative, and those efforts have helped to reduce defects and mistakes and waste out of the process. And hey, doesn't it make you feel good that there's a lot of cost savings and that they're being better and more efficient and more effective about spending taxpayer dollars?
Yes.
So, but I think the most compelling thing to me is its results are always really compelling. But one of the pieces that I really liked about this subject is the director of the Public Works Agency, Jeff Pratt, basically said his people are empowered through trust, communication, and safety. So the department is fiscally responsible, customer focused, and accountable. What I love about that is that's typically not what people might consider a government culture. Safety, trust, feeling empowered. Unfortunately, there are a lot of agencies in government that really struggle with a culture that will allow for process improvement to flourish. But it sounds to me like they have found the secret code or cracked the code for that for their organization. So kudos to Ventura County on their savings and their success with Lean Six Sigma. Woohoo!
Yeah, no, I back you on that. Every time I hear a county, a municipality, a state, a city using Lean Six Sigma to reduce costs, better serve their citizens, I am just filled with my little Lean Six Sigma joy because it means it's possible for others, right? And this is, we see it spreading, but it's just incredibly hopeful. I love to see it.
Yes, I would agree. And I would just say too that I think government workers get a bad rap. Most people think that it's impossible to apply process improvement techniques in government, and it's just untrue. I mean, there is a lot of good work out there, and, as Americans, we should acknowledge that government workers are trying.
Yeah, they are. And clearly these guys are trying so well, they're saving unbelievably large amounts of money. And they're doing things that like hospitals do. Hospitals will share very expensive big testing equipment because why do they need two, right? They can send patients to use the same machine and just share it. So similar to their sharing of the backhoe. I love that. Well, Tracy, for mine, I looked into the private side. I saw a great article on Henderson Products. These guys are in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. This is a truck equipment distributor, but they clearly have a VP of ops that lives and breathes Lean Six Sigma, and they are incredibly lucky for it. We talked about what people thought lean meant, that it was about removing waste, that it was about efficiency, that it was about cost reduction. And I love that he brought it back to, what? Lean is about problem solving. And I know you and I feel like that is exactly what it is. So it's about problem solving, and he lets his people do the problem solving. So they had this great approach to 5S. And I love that he pointed out 5S doesn't mean sweep, 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 which I hadn't heard that before, but that's great, right? It's not that. And he told his people, walk through the shop as if you were a customer. Would you want your products if you saw this kind of disorganization, this kind of clutter? So that was the first start. And when they did their first phase of 5S and they did the sort, they threw out 7 dumpsters of stuff from a previous owner, right?
Wow.
I mean, we do it in our own homes. I might need that. I'll put it in a closet. I might need that. I'll put it in the attic. Mm-hmm. And you never look at it again. So these guys looked at this stuff and said, yeah, we don't need any of that. We're not using it. Out it goes. Mm-hmm. And what's nice and what he did was he had 11 people on the shop floor team, 11 people from the shop floor on his 5S team. And they're the ones that came up with this idea of having a golden dump truck, which is kind of like their Stanley Cup. And whoever scored the highest on their 5S, because they do a continual audit for each area, got to hold on to the dump truck. And man, they were just showcasing that truck with each other because it meant so much. So huge success, reducing lead time, totally owned by the workers. And their mantra is solve one problem every day. I love that. That's a nice mantra.
That is nice. And it seems achievable, manageable, meaningful.
Yeah, all that. So next up, Tracy's going to talk to us about tools of the trade. And Tracy, what's on the docket today for our latest book?
So the book we are going to be talking about today is Drive by Daniel Pink. And this book is about the surprising truth about what motivates us. And it really, I think, it's been out for a while, and it's been one of my favorite books to read, because I think the misnomer out there, or the myth, is that what drives people is money. And I don't believe, and he basically has a very comprehensive and robust case about how that is not true. And that, dangling a carrot or dollars in front of an employee is not going to drive them or motivate them. And so I think that's a really important concept. So he really spent some time talking about that. And I know that you've got some ideas on that driving people. What are your thoughts on that, Elizabeth?
Well, the carrot and the stick aspect hits home to me because it feels like if anyone out there has done a Kano analysis, and you separate customer requirements into delighters and satisfiers and dissatisfiers, I think about, getting a bonus. Like if you get paid because you came up with a great idea, you did good work, then you basically are now expecting to get bonuses. Think about when you get on a plane and you get an upgrade, just random upgrade to first, it's your lucky day, or you had a complaint, they decided to solve your complaint by giving you an upgrade, whatever got you there. The next time you take a flight and you don't get upgraded to first, you are disappointed. So what starts as an incentive and something that feels like a reward quickly becomes a dissatisfier because, well, then you just need more, right? More money, more of whatever it is that you're getting as a reward. And it doesn't really work after a while. So I totally get that piece of it.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, it says in the book that money can sometimes demotivate people, right? It can actually suck the enjoyment out of something because now you're saying, well, okay, here's some money. But, it takes away from other things like, feeling that sense of accomplishment just because you did something that nobody had done before, or that you were super creative about it. So sometimes money can be a demotivator. And so Daniel Pink talks a lot about that as well, that it's not always about money. Mm-mm. And, there are some things that motivate employees that don't cost anything, and that organizations are not leveraging those things or identifying those things well enough so that they can actually, motivate their employees more. And so there's 3 elements that Daniel Pink really focuses on about what motivates humans. And those 3 things are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And so we're going to just spend some time talking about each one of these. So autonomy, I really relate to autonomy because, and autonomy to me is freedom to choose how much effort you expend on something, how you do something, the way you do something, when you do something. And as an example, sometimes my creative juices are most in play at 3 a.m. So am I just going to, if I have to work from 8 to 5 only, so I might just go back to sleep because, I know I have to get up and work from 8 to 5 anyway. So why don't I just go back to sleep and then, actually put the thinking time in at 8. So sometimes not allowing people to have that autonomy or having them do things a certain way without any freedom or collaboration can really demotivate somebody. And so that is one of the primary drivers of motivation is autonomy.
Yeah, I hear that one. And I think it's a question you should ask yourself if you're in a position of management. Do I need to micromanage? Do I need to take charge of this particular activity? Or can I refer authority to somebody else? If they took this and run with it, how much more energy would they have and enjoyment if it was theirs?
Yes, absolutely. So the second thing that Daniel Pink talks about is purpose, and that people do things, are motivated because there's a strong purpose behind it. Just think about all the people in government. Do they actually work there because it pays a boatload of money? No, they do it. Many of them do it because they are driven towards a higher purpose, giving back, making a contribution. That is a huge driver of motivation for humans, is to give back and contribute and volunteer and feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself, something that you believe in. And that's really what all the purpose piece is if there's a strong purpose behind an organization, how do we leverage that more to help and motivate employees and really help them be the best that they can be?
And that one resonates with me. I saw a fabulous speaker at a lean conference in Seattle, and this is someone from within government where they have a very impressive lean effort. And she used the question, for the sake of what, right? We are teaching our prison inmates skills, and our goal is to teach them more skills. For the sake of what? The more skills they have, the more possibility they have of getting hired on the outside once they're released. Great. For the sake of what? Well, the more they're able to get jobs, the less recidivism we have, which is the less people are re-entered into prison. And the less recidivism there is, right? For the sake of what? Well, the safer the citizenry. So the purpose was safety of our people, and that people can get involved and get energized around. So knowing the purpose, Tracy, I think that's huge.
Yeah, purpose can be a huge driver, and probably I think people can relate to that. They go, yeah, I get that. I think maybe autonomy and mastery aren't as a quick jump or a shorter jump, but definitely important. So let's now talk about the final piece, which is mastery. And the idea behind this is people want to be really good at something. They want to master something. And, a great example of this is anyone that plays an instrument. So most people want to play an instrument. They learn how to play an instrument. They don't do it because they want to be a millionaire. They don't necessarily do it because they're going to get paid more. They do it in their spare time because they enjoy it. They like it. They want to get better at playing that instrument just simply because they want to master it. And so that is a driver of motivation, is mastery. And, and to your point, how do we as managers or leaders, leverage that? And a lot of it is, providing the ability to learn and get better at skills. So providing additional training opportunities, providing coaching sessions, letting people feel like they're growing. I think a big motivator for me is growth. I mean, am I growing? Am I learning? Am I mastering something? I tried to master ice skating a couple years ago. That didn't really work out well, but it was fun.
Tracy, I don't know about you, but this book changed my attitude completely about motivation and changed my focus when I'm working with other people.
That's great. Yes, I really like it too. And it's definitely, people get it. And when we think about rewards and recognition in a Lean Six Sigma program, how do we incorporate these three elements into rewards and recognition more so than gift cards or dollars or something like that? So I think that's something to really think through, because then you can leverage many pieces of motivation, not just one dimension.
Great point.
So coming up next, we have a special request from our website that Elizabeth is going to answer.
The question, please, Tracy.
The question is, how would you compare Lean Six Sigma and ISO 9001 in quality systems? Any advice to new learners who already have ISO 9001 knowledge?
This is a great question, and it brings up something that I remember bumping up against years ago when I kept hearing about this thing called ISO. Because when you're in the Lean Six Sigma world, you're in that world. That's the method you're looking at. That's your Bible. So what was this ISO? So when I first started studying it, it looked like all it was, or the core of it was, for many industries, you had to be certified in some level of ISO. It's applied to that particular industry. And it meant that you followed a process and you had to document what that process was. And then if they did an inspection, they would have the documentation and they would check, were you following the process that you said you did? So it was basically do what you say you're doing, right? It was pretty simplistic. And I looked at that and I thought, but our world is about looking at how you do something, getting an as is process, and then figuring out how you could do it better, fixing it, and then coming up with a new process map. And I think somewhere in there, ISO clued in and said, oh, well, they were in the middle of mapping and they saw that things should change too. So that started to change. And I think that there's a place for Lean Six Sigma inside ISO, that you can use Lean Six Sigma to basically meet your customer requirements and bring your process to a level that will satisfy customer requirements profitably, and then document that. And then that will be what ISO comes in and checks you against. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is that your experience?
Yeah. Same thing. The popular term in Lean Six Sigma that really made me think of ISO 9000 is standard work, right? So do you have standard work? And if you do you follow standard work? And I think, I hate to, say that ISO 9000 is all about that, but those were the two questions. If I had to simplify ISO 9000 and compare it to Lean, that's what I would say is, do you have standard work and are people following standard work? And then when you actually improve it, are you updating the standard work? So, I think that's where there's significant overlap between Lean and ISO.
Yeah. And good overlap.
All right. So coming up next is today's special.
So today's special is an interview with Carla O'Dell. She's the CEO of APQC. That stands for American Productivity and Quality Council, along with a colleague of hers, Dewey Dorsett, who works in the education field. So what's interesting is that APQC is known for knowledge management and benchmarking, but they took on bringing process improvement into public schools. And their efforts have resulted in improved attendance, improved test scores, freeing up cash to spend on teachers. But education is different, clearly different from the public sector. So we're going to find out exactly how in this fascinating interview with two leaders in their field.
Exciting. Yes, that's definitely one industry that, again, lots of opportunity for improvement in terms of processes. So that's going to be great to hear about.
Hey there, we have today's special. And for today's special, I have with me here in the cafe, Carla O'Dell, the CEO, and Dewey Dorsett, Senior Advisor at the American Productivity and Quality Center, otherwise known as APQC. Welcome to the cafe, Carla and Dewey.
It's good to be here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Carla, could you share a little bit about yourself and your role at APQC for our listeners?
Sure. We're a member-based nonprofit research institute. We've been around here about 40 years. So given that, I wear a couple of hats. One is I am CEO, which is with all the work that comes with that and the joy that comes with that to represent APQC to the outside world. But I've held virtually every job here. So I have a lot of experience in benchmarking, best practices, and the whole area of how organizations can better share knowledge and share what they know so that they can build on what they know, their best practices, which is certainly an educator's topic.
Yeah, all of that. Great. Many hats. Thank you. And Dewey, how about you?
Yes, I'm Senior Advisor with APQC, and I've been with APQC for, this is my second year. And prior to that, I worked in the Center of Excellence for Continuous Improvement with Air Products for 2 years, 2013, 2014. Then have a quite bit of a history in consulting and process and performance management, which is, of course, the services that I provide with APQC. Great. And a long time ago, when the internet was just a network of research labs and colleges, I got my first paycheck from a company called Springs Industries. That's way back before they even had cell phones.
Wow, that's back there. Thank you.
Yep.
That's nice. Thanks, Dewey. Thanks, Carla. So just a good big starting question for you guys. APQC is largely known for its incredible depth and breadth in the world of knowledge management, best practices, and process improvement is largely associated with things like lean manufacturing. So how did APQC come to focus on improving the processes of public education?
Oh, well, what a great question. Can I take you on a very brief trip down memory lane that one?
Take us
because
down.
I have been here for decades. So here's what happened. When we first started APQC in the late 70s, early 80s, people were clueless about what improvement looked like. All these things that you just mentioned, Lean, Six Sigma, process improvement, knowledge management, were not even a gleam in anybody's eye. And one of the first things that we did was we began to look around the world for people who seemed to know something about it. And we brought to the United States Six Sigma, one of the first people to bring it here. This was in the 80s. We brought all the concepts of Lean. We helped bring that here. We started the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award, which a lot of educational groups, school districts and others have won. And that whole era was the beginning of process improvement, even in business and government and industry and education back then. So until 15 years ago, most of our focus was in helping organizations improve their processes. We got the world's biggest databases of metrics around cost, quality, cycle time, and so on, for all kinds of processes. But about 15 years ago, we said, you know what? There are about, and here's a real count, 322 process improvement techniques or concepts that business has spent the last 30 years perfecting, business, government, healthcare. Don't educators deserve to have those at their fingertips? Why can't those be adapted for education? And so that's what Dewey and others at APQC in our education division, that's what we've been doing the last 15 years, just saying, hey, process matters. The kids matter. The best way for education to take advantage of all these years of experimentation in business is to leapfrog, take the best, and run with it right now in education.
You know, thanks for reminding me about the Malcolm Baldrige Award. I had completely forgotten that that's something instigated by APQC. And you're right, an incredibly rich history, an incredibly rich process improvement history, and really lovely pivot to say, hey, how about education? Why not education? So what's so different about education when it comes to process improvement?
Oh, Dewey, you want to tell them?
Well, I think actually the short answer is the education is just like everyone else. But I think the challenge is making the connection to the processes within education, from the classroom to transportation to food services to maintaining the physical assets. And that is, it's really dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's and looking at, if we're talking about education, if we're talking about a school district, having the superintendent and the superintendent's cabinet, as well as the other leaders in the district, even the boards, understanding that the districts, in fact, are a system unto themselves, and that all the parts have a key relationship with each other, and they can't be managed by themselves, but they need to be managed holistically. And what I've just seen in the 2 years that I've been here is that as when we can work with superintendents and cabinets at the district level, or even state departments, working within some of the state departments, making that, helping educators see themselves as a whole system, and then understanding, as Carla said, that process matters. When you need to achieve objectives and you have resource constraints, and education is severely constrained on resources, we have to be very efficient at what we do, and we have to be very consistent and very good at what we do. And that's process and performance management.
That's really ringing true. The educators I speak with just tell me every year the cut to the budget, and then how do they manage to teach and run a school holistically or not holistically on less money. What were you going to say, Carla?
Well, I'm just saying that it all comes back to what is different is that quote unquote product is the education of our children for the future and for the quality of their own lives. And I mean, there could not be a more important outcome they're trying to achieve. And they're doing it with less. So how do you do more with less? They're being asked to do a lot more because the international competitive situation, which APQC is right in the middle of. We serve companies and governments and schools all over the world, including school systems in Australia. The competition is enormous, and the quality of life, it's not a theoretical problem. These children are not going to have good lives. For the first generation, we may have a generation of kids who live less well than their parents did. And education is the only way out of that. For us, it's a mission. Can we do whatever we can to improve the processes around the teaching process so that those teachers can do their jobs that they want to do?
Yeah.
You know, education, following that, education is really the true knowledge management industry, so to speak, or enterprise or process, if you will. But if you look at what our education system has to do, it's not just about knowledge management and subject matter expertise and gaining that. Schools are also being tasked with, the emotional intelligence, the students being developed emotionally as well as physically. So you've got really mind, body, soul. And just as an example around process, we have to feed our students. And we have some schools where you have students who their only meal is what they get at school. So having processes that link together, getting students to the school on time, having them go to a cafeteria and eat a meal. And so it should be a meal they want to eat. So hopefully they get to the cafeteria and they eat a meal. Then they go to a class. Now they're awake, they're nourished, and they're ready to learn. Those transportation, food services, and now you've got a child who's ready to learn and behaves in the classroom. So it's now easier for the teacher to meet their learning objectives. So all these things are really very mind, body, soul is very important, how it ties together in the education system, particularly K through 12.
That's such an incredibly lovely way to put it, because I think about comparisons to lean manufacturing and you're building a better student, but the humongous difference is you're dealing with mind, body, and soul. That's a lovely thing, and a kind of an incredible mission, and just pivotal to all of our lives. As you say, Carla, this is worldwide. This is the first year where this is going to be an issue, or it's starting. This generation is going to take a hit if things like this don't come through. So,
that's right.
Can you guys go ahead, Carla?
And I just wanted to make it real. We work with how many now? We call it a North Star project, aiming for that North Star, that achievement for our kids is a North Star. We have about 124 school districts who have used process improvement, have these phenomenal results. And it's been, it's everything, like the things that Dewey talked about, transportation and food service. They get great results on everything, curriculum development, to how to optimize the copy center for making copies for teachers so that they don't have to spend all their time doing that, and freeing up teacher time to how do we schedule the classes during the day for optimum use. And they benchmark inside their district, they do process improvement, and then we also help them kind of look outside the district for best practices. And more school districts are open to spending the time it takes to find out what are best practices and how could they adapt them.
So really, you're running the gamut. This is another, as Dewey was using the word holistic. You're looking holistically from making paper copies to improving grades. I remember hearing that, back to Dewey's point about one of the issues is getting that student in on time, getting them in a place where they can get a good meal, into class on time. And I heard one district was working on just the stack up of buses. The fact that they were late end to end meant the last buses were late. Students were late getting into the classroom. So just moving changing that process made a huge difference in terms of that goal of getting students in there.
That's right. I was going to say one of the things I would point out also in education is that educators, highly dedicated to student achievement and the students in their classroom, and they're so passionate about what they're doing. But what I've seen just from the past couple of years, they're very task driven, and they look at things from a task, or we tend to, and I think it's simply because of how we've been trained, how we've been raised, in our pedigree. They look at things from a task perspective, from a project perspective, and what is missing is that a lot of these are tied to process that are repeatable and measurable and need to be managed. And so an example, we're talking about efficiencies at the beginning of a school year, a school district making first day packets for all the students to take home, sign forms and make sure they have everything in order and get counts set up and content books signed for. That one district putting that together, and they looked at it as a project and task year in, year out. They were the time it took the teachers to make the copies for all their classrooms and get all that put together, had to come in before the first day of class, overtime, inner buildings had to be opened, security had to be called. This is a process that goes on and on and on every year. Every year we're doing the same thing. And then stepping back and saying, from a process perspective, how can we do it differently? How can we leverage the resources we have? A lot of that manual work was put into digital content, digital format. And, we actually ended up giving hours and hours back to the teachers because they don't have to copy. They don't have to put things together. They look at it as a process. Somebody has to own it every year. In July, we have to start getting ready, but now it's digital. We're leveraging the resources we have from a digital content delivery perspective. And now teachers can spend more time planning their classrooms rather than doing manual copy work. And that's the kind of efficiencies and improvements that, that districts, once they get them, they go, oh, this is great. And so those are, like you mentioned, those are the type of exciting successes that we have.
The analogy to healthcare strikes me that one of the focuses in healthcare is how do we relieve nurses of tasks that are repetitive, manual, that we can somehow make faster, take less time, so that they can spend more time with patients. And you have the same attitude I can hear about teachers. How can we take these tasks, this time-consuming process, and give them time back, because the goal is to get them with students, spending time on the planning for the classroom or spending time actually with the students. And it's a similar effort.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where one of the things that we need to be mindful of is our organization from federal level down to state level down to the classroom. Things that are asked for, and I know it's been a big issue in the schools. It's not something that necessarily that we deal with, that APQC deals with, but we see the schools affected by it because then it ties into their reporting processes. But when state agencies or federal agencies ask for a piece of information, the amount of paperwork that it causes at the local level is tremendous, and we have to step back and say, what's the right balance of consistency in reporting? Do we want the teachers more in the classroom or more on filling out paper and forms? And the fact is they have to do both, but what gets cut short is their ability to plan after the class and before the class. They're spending a lot of time filling out paperwork.
Carla?
Oh, I'm so excited that Dewey brought that up. I hadn't thought about it before, but one of them, I mentioned earlier, there are over 300 techniques and concepts that educators can use to improve their processes, methods. But there is emerging this whole area of automating the reporting process by basically having a little smart machine piece of software look at a set of scores or a database of time spent or whatever the reports that the state agency is requiring, and it will turn that into a text-based report. And in fact, if you'd like it to, it'll speak to you in a nice voice. and deliver it. And offloading, most people don't know that the weather report that they read every morning is that forecast was not written by a meteorologist. It was written by a machine. The ESPN sports scores, or the, so-and-so knocked it out of the park last, week, surprising everyone who'd ever thought he was a jerk. That was written by a machine. So that's called narrative science. And I'm just saying that, right now, that may be a little out of the ballpark, pardon the continued metaphor, for the cost in education, but the cost of that's coming down very rapidly. Yeah. So when I say there's stuff that can be adapted, it's not just the classic process improvement techniques. The ability to automate the onerous, time-consuming, non-value-added parts of knowledge workers' time and work is perfect for educators. Was there ever somebody who was more of a knowledge worker than a teacher? No.
Right. Incredible way to put it. And you're forgiven for the baseball metaphors. It is baseball season. We'll let that go.
Thank you.
And I think what strikes me, if I think about the process world, and the 8 wastes, and the 8th one is, the waste of intellectual capital. And that's really what you're talking about with teachers, that can we use their skills that they were hired for really to produce that educated student, and find ways, whether it's these incredible advances in narrative or other arenas that will give them a leg up and a way to knock down some of those tasks and take that out of their day. So what are some of the resisting forces, or what are some of the reasons we can't move faster with process improvement in schools? It feels like, oh my God, it's holistic. Teachers get to teach their students. Like, what could possibly be against this? Why aren't we moving any faster?
Oh, who gets to go first, Dewey? You or me?
Well, I can say what we've seen is that there's part of it is competing forces, community wants and desires, and understanding what the districts are trying to do with a process and performance framework. I think actually we seek, and the educators themselves, just the unknown. What does this mean? How is it going to change things? How do my roles and responsibilities, what I'm accountable for, how do those things change? There's really the typical change management issues that you would see within any organization. But the fact is that's not fear, but it's an aversion, understanding that if something goes wrong, then the community is, immediately calling parents, key stakeholders, immediately calling the superintendent and the cabinets, or in the principal's office. And so I think there needs to be a solid base, solid case for change, business case for change, if you will, to help everyone understand what the benefits of this are. Yeah. And but also that it takes time. It's not done in a day. It's not done in a meeting. It takes a couple of years for a district really to get fully organized and put a process framework in place.
Yeah. And you guys have done amazing work. You've gotten into so many districts and made so much of a difference. It's exciting. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to tell our listeners before we wrap?
I have something, Elizabeth, and it's just to pick up on what Dewey said. What we've learned over the years is that the techniques and tools were never the problem or the solution in any organization. It's all about having the right strategy for getting started, involving the right people, communicating to the right people, addressing the right concerns, and that's what a quote unquote intervention that works looks like. And how do you get started? You find the leadership team that's interested in finding out a little bit more about whether this process stuff is worthy of distraction. Have them, spend 2.5, 4 hours with us, and we'll give them an intro into this and what has worked and not worked, and find out what's of interest to them, who needs to be involved. It's all about empowerment, engagement, change management, communication, and the tools are what you get to use once you figure out the real change that's required.
Yeah. And that's true in the process world, the business world as well. I think everything you guys are pointing out, the change management, the need for a strategy. And I think what's most compelling with what you guys are describing is just the mission that you're on to transform U.S. education and, in Australia. And that's exciting and moving. And I can't see not wanting to get on board with that. So if people are interested, where can they find you online?
They can find us at apqc.org or apqceducation.org specifically. That's the education, to get to education, apqceducation.org. I can be contacted at DORSETT at apqc.org. That's my email. So happy to take emails and respond to that. And on Twitter, we're at the ampersand hashtag APQC education.
And we have tons of free stuff on our sites too, both of those sites, the education specific site and the larger apqc.org site. So go in and mess around and give us a call,
Elizabeth, if I could say one thing we've worked on that's been quite exciting, and this is really the transformation of the classroom, is we've worked with the Gates Foundation and a group called the Center for Educational Leadership and Technology, CELT, on personalized learning. And you want to talk about change that's the other thing in terms of adapting processes, change from traditional classroom teaching to where you basically have a batch of 25 students going from grade 3 to grade 4 to grade 5 to grade 6 to personalized learning where you have individual students with their own individual plan. It's basically going from batch teaching to single piece flow. The transformation in the classroom is going to be huge, and that's going to be very challenging because it's talking about digital resources. Again, the skills of the campus and the teachers to manage individual lesson plans from the student, and it's a challenge also for the student resources, what they have at home and within their community. So that's sort of the cutting edge, what's coming down, and it's kind of a frontier.
That's exciting.
But it will be backed by, again, it's enabled by process. You have to have process in order to make that work.
You do. And that's exciting. And it's right in line with anything I've heard from educators, where teachers will say, you can't just sort of move on. Every single kid has to pass. So being personalized about their learning is key. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining today and for sharing what's happening with APQC and their efforts to transform public education in the States. Really appreciate. Our listeners, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Just in Time Cafe. We'd love your feedback. Please give us a review on iTunes or on our website, and don't forget to subscribe. It's still warm, so you can all enjoy iced coffee, courtesy of the Just in Time Cafe. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we hope you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable. We'd love your feedback on our podcast. So please leave us a review on iTunes, on our website, and don't forget to subscribe. And we hope you enjoy your iced coffee today because it's a hot one.
It's a hot one, people. Drink up.
Thank you for joining us for Just in Time Cafe. Visit golean6sigma.com/podcast to share your feedback or listen to more podcasts. Also, please subscribe to Just in Time Cafe on iTunes.